to Financial Minds Meet the Experts. I'm Jamie Agostino, your host. On this show, we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit union professionals need to know about. Today on Financial Minds Meet the Experts, we're continuing our series dedicated to work culture with Joe Bertotto, Chief Culture Officer for Vizo Financial. Today, we are focusing on breaking the myth, befriend your employees. Joe, let's dive right in.
Okay.
Can you tell us what you mean by befriend your employees?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because there are different schools of thought, right? One is don't get too close to your employees, keep them at arm's length, you know, and the other one is, if you're friends with people, they're going to work harder, right? So the more you can kind of push through and really develop those relationships and have friendly relationships with people on your team, the better. So because again, I think, if you think about it, would you rather work with somebody who's a friend of yours or somebody who kind of keeps you at arm's length? And I think the great majority of people are going to say, I'd rather work with a friend. And I do think also, one of the things we always talk about is individualizing our leadership. So, we've got to also recognize, well, what does that mean to each person, right? That's another part of this. So it's individualizing our leadership to each person. And as we do that, it's really kind of being friendly, creating friendships with people. As we work with them, because I think at the end of the day, that creates kind of the caring environment that helps drive people to give their extra effort.
Right? I mean, shouldn't there be a line not to cross on becoming friends with your employees?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an interesting question. So thanks. I think the thing you always have to be careful of is do I am I just this way with one or two people versus everybody on the team? But it's also interesting. Like I worked with a manager who had an employee who was moving, and he went and helped the person move. Right. So some people would say, well, that's crossing the line. But the interesting thing is, not only was the employee helped move just so struck by it, and basically would do anything that manager asked and proactively look for things to do, but everybody else on the team thought it was so great, that they kind of were the same way, like, wow, that's really cool that you help this guy move. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think you've got to be careful and not do the same thing with, not like go out to dinner with one person all the time or that kind of thing. But I think it is this sense of, you know, how do I continually build that sense of care so that we've got this very collegial environment within the team?
Well, and to kind of what you're saying, I mean, couldn't there be a problem, with feelings of favoritism, depending on the situation?
Yeah, I think it's a point well taken. I do think you have to watch that, right? I think you have to make sure if you're doing things, you're doing them with everybody, right? So kind of my thought is if you're doing something, you've got to invite everybody on the team. You don't want to not invite a person, right? That to me that's not creating kind of a friendly environment. It's dividing your team, right? So I think the way to avoid that is, if we're going to lunch, we invite everybody, or if we're bringing lunch in, or whatever that looks like in a remote environment for people. Everybody's involved. We don't want to exclude anybody because that's really kind of the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish with a friendly environment and befriending people. So I think the way around that is really to make sure that we're inviting people and we're doing things for everybody. So this manager I just talked about, if he's helping one person move, he's got to be pretty aware that that's a precedent, right? He's kind of setting. And if he's available to help people move, that's something else he's got to be aware of. So I do believe you have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. Well, what happens then if one of my direct reports doesn't meet the expectations and we kind of have this friendly relationship? What do I do?
Yeah, right. Because that's the big thing. And I think that's why people are reluctant to befriend people. Like the reason I hear when I, do workshops or work with managers, talk to managers and credit unions is, well, if I do too much of that and they don't do their job, then we're friends and I can't talk to them about their expectation. And frankly, I think, it's the exact opposite, right? If we've got this great relationship, one, I want to make sure I'm meeting all the expectations, right? Because I don't want to let my manager down. So that's kind of one part. The other part is if we've created this great team, I don't want to let my colleagues down. So I'm going to hold myself accountable. But where there are situations where the person doesn't meet expectation, I really think it is just having that conversation. And I think that's an easier conversation to have if we have a relationship and there's not, a contentious nature to it, right? It's just, hey, you didn't meet these expectations. What happened? What's going on? And trying to understand that because, you know, if you've created that kind of environment where people are holding themselves accountable because they don't want to let anybody else on the team down, there's
Mhm.
typically something in the way, right? That's doing that. So going into that conversation as you would with any friend to try to understand what's going on, I think makes it an easier conversation to have.
All right. What are some of the problems with befriending your employees that we could
I think
encounter?
it, yeah, I think it would be if you're excluding people is to me the biggest thing.
Okay.
Um, Beyond that, I'm not thinking there's a whole lot that there's a downside to because I just think about this. If people are asked to name kind of the best manager they ever worked for, that typically was a manager who cared about them, right? Who took an interest in them, who knew them as a person. Like those are the kind of people that we talk about as our best manager we've worked for. It's not the person who kept the arm's length relationship. It's not the person who it was all business. I mean, the reality is we bring ourselves to work every day, right? So we bring our home life to work and we bring our work life home at night. It's it's the way it is for most people.
Mhm.
So kind of recognizing that work is such an integral part of people's lives to create an environment that is friendly and collegial and we're all kind of working together and we're all supporting and helping and caring for each other. I mean, it just goes a long way, right? So I think the only thing to be aware of is the exclusion part. I never want to exclude people.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure I'm treating each person as an individual because not everybody kind of likes to be treated the same way, right? So I
Yeah.
think those two things.
Absolutely. And Joe, you know me, so you know my number two strength is relator, and this is like befriending your employees and relator like go hand in hand
Yeah.
because I like close relationships, and that has served me well as a manager, and having a friendly relationship with all the people that report to me. So
Yeah, and I mean, you look at, our engagement scores and your teams in particular, Jamie, and they're off the chart. And you know, part of the reason they're off the chart is because you've created such strong teams and you've done that in so many ways. But one of those key factors is, you do all these little social events and you do things that bring people together and make people feel like they're a team and they like and enjoy each other's company. You lead that. So kudos to you.
yeah,
Makes a difference.
yeah, people just want to feel that that you actually care for them,
Yeah.
genuinely care about them.
It,
So
it, it's a,
any
but
final thoughts for our listeners today?
yeah, I mean, I just think, don't get don't get caught up in the reason I'm not befriending people is because I might have to discipline them. I think that's the main reason I hear that people try do this arm's length relationship. And I would just say, I think that conversation is a little bit easier if you have that. And I think also what happens, and Jamie, maybe you can speak to this too, like when you have these strong relationships, those things don't happen because people are taking personal accountability. And when they mess up, they're apologizing and feel bad and thinking, okay, I can't let that happen again. So sometimes you don't even have to have the conversations because people are harder on themselves than you would ever be as a manager. So I know what
Yeah,
you think about that, but
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, Joe, thank you again for joining me to talk about culture. Today's episode is being sponsored by Vizo Financial's Payment Conference. With the landscape of payments changing at such a rapid pace, this educational event is one that will pay off for your credit union. The virtual conference will be held October 18th and 19th. During these 2 days, attendees will be invited to participate in multiple education sessions on everything from instant payments and the FedNow service to ACH and beyond. Learn more about this conference and how to register at www.vfccu.org. Thanks for listening and make it a great day.